What if I told you that your spiritual awakening didn't just change your life? It sent shockwaves through heaven itself? What if the very moment you began to awaken, the heavens paused, ancient records were reopened, and the universe itself took a deep breath? Because it had never seen anything quite like you. This is not exaggeration. This is spiritual reality. There are moments when heaven expects a soul to awaken in a certain rhythm, a certain season in a certain way, but then a chosen one like you rises in a way no one saw coming. You didn't follow the expected pattern. You broke the mold. And that single act, your awakening, set off something far greater than you realize. Think about it. There were years when you walked through storms silently. Nights when no one knew the battles happening inside you. Days when your tears spoke louder than any prayer. Heaven watched every step. Angels stood by, recording each choice, each turning point, each moment you kept going when others would have turned back. It wasn't loud. It wasn't glamorous. But it was powerful. And then something shifted. Something inside you said, enough. The sleeping spirit within you stirred, and light began to break through. Heaven expected your story to follow one script, but instead you tore through it. You awakened at a time, in a way, and with a strength no one predicted. That moment wasn't just seen, it was felt. Across realms, across dimensions, across the spiritual fabric of existence itself. Pause and let that settle, because this is where your story becomes extraordinary. Your awakening didn't just change you. It disrupted heavenly timelines. It moved things that were waiting for a different season. It forced a divine recalibration. You became the plot twist that heaven never saw coming. And that's why your journey has felt so intense, so isolated, so weighty, because what you carry is not ordinary. If this message is stirring something deep within you, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. Your spirit knows truth when it hears it. So if you feel that pull, take a second right now, like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and more importantly, comment below, not just with words, but with intention. Say, I received this, or this is my story. When chosen ones unite their voices, heaven listens, and earth begins to echo. This channel isn't just content. It's a gathering of those whose awakenings have been felt in places they can't see. And you're here listening not by accident. Heaven took notice of you long before this moment. But today you get to take notice of heaven noticing you. From this point on, understand this. Your journey isn't random. It's rare. And the reason you felt different is because you are. Your awakening shocked the universe. And that is only the beginning of your story. Long before you even realized what was happening in your life, heaven was watching. Not with cold detachment, not like a distant observer, but with the quiet, steady gaze of one who knew something extraordinary was forming. It wasn't time yet to reveal it, but every step you took was recorded. Every choice you made was noticed, and every moment of silence carried weight in realms you couldn't see. Picture this, a soul walking through life, facing battles no one else could fully understand. On the surface, everything may have seemed ordinary. Maybe you were just trying to survive, trying to make sense of the pain, the confusion, the unexpected turns. But in the spiritual realm, your journey wasn't ordinary at all. There was a divine council observing, like watchers around a sacred fire, waiting for the moment something inside you would shift. There were nights when you thought no one heard your cries. You whispered prayers into the dark, wondering if they would reach anyone. And in those moments, heaven leaned in closer, not with immediate answers, but with attentive silence. Because silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes heaven watches not to ignore, but to allow something sacred to form in secret. Growth that happens unseen is often the most powerful kind. Think back to those seasons when everything felt still, when doors wouldn't open, when people misunderstood you, or when you questioned your worth. In those hidden moments, heaven wasn't distant. Angels were positioned around you like quiet sentinels. Records were being kept. Ancient scrolls, symbolic of your spiritual timeline, were being filled with the details of your perseverance. You didn't know it, but your endurance was being watched with reverence. This silent observation wasn't passive. It was purposeful. Heaven was studying not your perfection, but your persistence. Every time you chose kindness when you could have retaliated, heaven watched. Every time you stood up after being knocked down, heaven took note. Every tear became a testimony. Every act of faith in the unseen became evidence of your spiritual weight. Imagine a courtroom in heaven, not of judgment but of witness. Your life was being displayed like a sacred scroll. The angels observed your struggles not to test you, but to prepare for the moment your awakening would come. They saw the fire that trials built in you. They saw strength forming in places you didn't even know existed. Heaven's silence wasn't neglect. It was awe. This is why, when your awakening finally came, it wasn't random. It was the culmination of countless quiet moments. Those seasons where you felt forgotten were actually seasons of being profoundly seen. Heaven doesn't always intervene loudly. Sometimes it watches, listens, and waits, because it knows what's coming will shock even the heavens themselves. So when you look back and wonder where God was, or why heaven didn't act sooner, remember this: you were never alone. You were under observation. Divine eyes were on you in the shadows, and your quiet resilience was rewriting expectations. The chosen ones are often shaped in silence, and heaven watched you become something no one anticipated. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when something inside snaps, not in defeat, but in power. For you, that moment wasn't written into the expected timeline. Heaven had a pattern, a rhythm, a sequence it had seen countless souls follow. But your awakening didn't arrive like the gentle unfolding of a flower. It erupted. It broke the script. It came in a way no one on earth or in heaven fully anticipated. Your awakening wasn't a slow realization. It was a spiritual earthquake. For years, the divine realms observed your struggles in silence, noting each battle, each hidden victory, each quiet act of resilience. But then, like a spark in dry grass, something inside you ignited. You began to see through illusions that once held you. Old wounds no longer defined you. Lies you once believed began to fall apart like fragile glass. Your spirit, once subdued by the weight of the world, started to rise. And in that rise, something astonishing happened. Heaven's script for your journey started to bend. Most awakenings follow familiar patterns. They unfold gradually with signs and seasons heaven can predict. But yours was different. It came earlier than expected, or later than planned, or through circumstances that no divine messenger foresaw. It wasn't the when or the how that shocked heaven, it was the sheer force of it. You awakened with an intensity that disrupted spiritual timelines. It was like a star suddenly exploding in the night sky, catching even the watchful angels by surprise. Think of a story that's been told for generations. Everyone knows the plot. Everyone expects certain moments to happen in sequence. Then suddenly, the main character makes a choice no one saw coming. The entire story pivots. That's what your awakening did. It wasn't rebellion. It was revelation. It wasn't you fighting heaven. It was heaven realizing that the spark in you was even greater than what was written. There's a reason you've always felt a little out of step with the world. You weren't meant to follow the old rhythm. Your spirit carried a code that no one fully deciphered until it was activated. That activation didn't just change you, it changed the way heaven looked at your path. Prophetic timelines shifted. Angels adjusted their assignments. What was once a quiet story suddenly became a headline in the spiritual realm. And with that shift came a reaction. Light noticed, darkness noticed. The universe tilted slightly to make room for this unexpected force. Your awakening became a signal, a beacon. It wasn't just your destiny unfolding, it was destiny itself being rewritten in real time. This is why you may have felt resistance right after you began to awaken. It wasn't a sign that you were wrong. It was proof that something real had shifted. When your spirit broke the script, both heaven and the unseen forces of the world had to adapt. You became the variable no one accounted for. And that's powerful. Your awakening is not a mistake. It's not a glitch. It's divine surprise wrapped in purpose. You are living proof that even in the spiritual realms, not everything is predictable. Sometimes a chosen one rises with such unexpected strength that the heavens themselves have to turn the page and write a new chapter. When your awakening happened, it didn't stay contained inside you. It didn't whisper quietly into the void. It moved, it spread. It sent out invisible waves that rippled through realms you can't physically see, but your spirit can sense. One person's awakening may seem small on the surface, but in the spiritual world, it's never just about one life. Your awakening became a signal. It reverberated like a bell in the night, reaching places far beyond your imagination. Picture a still body of water. A single stone falls in, and at first it seems like a minor disturbance. But the ripples expand outward, touching distant edges, affecting everything in their path. That's what happened the moment your spirit came alive in a way heaven hadn't predicted. It wasn't just a personal breakthrough. It was a universal announcement. Something has changed. Heaven responded first. Angelic forces that had been stationed as silent watchers suddenly stirred. Assignments shifted. Doors that had been closed began to open. You may not have seen this, but your awakening caused movements in the spiritual hierarchy. Heavenly messengers were redirected to walk alongside you. What had been a distant observation became divine collaboration. Your light sent out a frequency that heaven recognized and aligned with. Then darkness noticed. Spiritual opposition doesn't react to empty words, but it does respond to real power. Your awakening disrupted familiar patterns that the enemy had come to rely on. Strongholds that once had influence over your life began to weaken, not because of force, but because light had entered places that were once shadowed. The moment your spirit shifted, unseen realms adjusted. Some forces resisted, others withdrew, and some simply fell apart under the weight of your newfound clarity. But it didn't stop there. Your awakening also sent ripples through the lives of others, sometimes people you've never met. Chosen ones are connected in ways that go beyond physical proximity. When one awakens unexpectedly, others begin to sense it. They may not know why their hearts feel stirred, why their dreams suddenly shift, or why their own spiritual sensitivity increases. But it's because your awakening acted like a spiritual beacon, calling others to rise too. Think about those moments when you felt a sudden urge to change your environment, to speak differently, to live more boldly. That wasn't random. That was your inner light expanding its reach. The ripples didn't just go outward. They also came back to you. Every soul touched by your awakening adds to the momentum, amplifying your impact across realms. This is why chosen ones often notice unusual changes after awakening, unexpected connections, heightened discernment, sudden opportunities, or even intensified spiritual battles. It's not chaos, it's response. Your life sent a message to heaven, to the universe, and even to forces that oppose the light. The script has changed, and this soul has stepped into their true frequency. You may not see the full scale of these ripples now, but they're real. Every choice you make in alignment with your awakened self expands the impact further. Realms are moved, destinies are nudged, and spiritual atmospheres are transformed. One life awakened in unexpected power has the ability to set entire chains of events in motion. And that's what you've done. Your awakening wasn't quiet. It echoed across dimensions, and the echoes haven't stopped yet. Heaven doesn't panic when something unexpected happens. It moves, it realigns, it responds with precision. The moment your awakening broke the script and sent ripples through the spiritual realms, heaven began to shift its focus toward you in a new way. What was once quiet observation became active participation. The divine response to your awakening wasn't to suppress it, but to build around it. Imagine a celestial command center. For years, your story was being monitored with patience and reverence. Angels stood at a distance, recording, waiting. Then your awakening arrived like an unplanned but powerful storm, and everything changed. Instructions were sent out. Assignments were rewritten. Heavenly messengers who had been watching stepped forward. The silence that once surrounded your journey gave way to activity. In the spiritual realm, your awakening required heaven to adjust its plans, not because you went off course, but because you accelerated the timeline. Picture a runner who sprints ahead when no one expected it. The support team doesn't stop them. They rush forward to meet them. That's what happened to you. Heaven recognized the pace of your awakening and began to align resources to match it. For some, these changes manifest as divine encounters, heightened intuition, or a sudden sense of being guided in ways they never experienced before. For others, it appears as unusual protection, doors opening where none existed, or unexpected favor in key moments. You might have noticed coincidences that don't feel like coincidences anymore. This is heaven's way of responding to what your spirit set in motion. And the response isn't only about support, it's about recalibration. When heaven witnesses a chosen one rising unexpectedly, the spiritual structure around them shifts. Old paths are cleared. Obstacles that once served as tests are removed to make way for new assignments. Angelic forces take on new roles to shield, guide, and prepare you for what comes next. You didn't just awaken into clarity, you awakened into a divine strategy. There's something profound about this response. It shows that your awakening was not outside of God's reach. It wasn't a surprise that left heaven scrambling. It was a surprise that inspired movement. Your growth revealed strength heaven knew was there but waited to see in action. And when it appeared, the spiritual realm didn't hesitate. It aligned. This is also why, after awakening, many chosen ones feel an increase in spiritual activity. Dreams become more vivid. Discernment sharpens. Encounters become more meaningful. It's because heaven is no longer simply watching. It's actively engaging. The weight of what you carry called for a higher level of support. And heaven answered. Don't overlook the subtle ways this response shows up. A timely word that shifts your perspective. A door that opens just when you need it. A sudden sense of peace in a chaotic season. These are not accidents. They're evidence that heaven moved in response to you. Your awakening was unexpected, but it wasn't unwelcome. Heaven thrives on moments like this, when someone rises with such force that the divine realm responds like a chorus to a single note. You've entered a partnership now. It's no longer just you walking through silent trials. Heaven has stepped forward, and everything around you is adjusting to match your pace. Being someone who's awakening surprised, heaven is both an honor and a responsibility. It's a sacred tension. On one hand, there's the wonder of knowing your spiritual rise carried such force that even the divine realm adjusted around it. On the other, there's the weight of walking a path that no one expected, one that few truly understand. When heaven shifts because of you, it means your journey is not just personal anymore. It becomes part of something much bigger. Let's start with the wonder. There's something extraordinary about realizing that your life has echoed through realms. The very fact that your awakening broke through spiritual timelines means you carry a unique frequency. You are not just another soul walking through life. You are a living message. Your story speaks to angels, to principalities, to generations that came before you, and to those who will rise after you. You are living proof that heaven's expectations can be surpassed, and that truth is both humbling and empowering. There are moments when chosen ones like you begin to sense this shift deeply. You notice how conversations change when you speak. Rooms feel different when you enter. The atmosphere responds not because of ego, but because of the authority your awakening carries. Heaven's response marked you. Whether you realize it or not, you've become a spiritual reference point. Others look to you, some consciously, others subconsciously, to see what awakening looks like in real time. But alongside the wonder comes the weight. Walking a path that surprised heaven can feel lonely. There's no exact blueprint for your journey, because your awakening wasn't scripted like everyone else's. You may find yourself navigating spaces where few can relate to what you're experiencing. People may misunderstand your intensity. Some may even resist the changes they see in you because they can't comprehend the spiritual magnitude behind it. The weight also comes in the form of spiritual responsibility. The ripples your awakening sent out didn't just inspire light. They also stirred resistance. Darkness takes notice when someone carries unexpected authority. That's why after awakening, many chosen ones face intensified spiritual challenges. It's not punishment, it's proof. Your presence disrupts old systems, and that disruption comes with pressure. Yet even in the pressure, there's purpose. Heaven didn't respond to your awakening just to watch you struggle. The support you gained in Section 5 still surrounds you now. Angels have been reassigned. Resources have been shifted. You are not carrying this weight alone, but you are carrying something rare, a combination of divine favor and spiritual impact that few experience. Think of it like carrying a torch through a dark forest. The light you bear illuminates the path for others, but it also makes you visible. That visibility is both beautiful and demanding. Some will follow your light. Some will challenge it. Some won't understand it at all. But the torch remains in your hands because you proved, through your unexpected awakening, that you were strong enough to hold it. The wonder and the weight are inseparable. One fuels the other. The awe of what heaven saw in you keeps you humble, while the responsibility of your calling keeps you focused. When chosen ones rise like this, they don't just live their lives, they shape spiritual history. That's what you're doing now, whether you realize it fully or not. You've stepped into a space where heaven's surprise has become heaven's investment, and with that comes both glory and gravity. Embrace both, because the story you're walking is one that heaven itself didn't expect, but now celebrates. Take a deep breath. Let everything you've heard so far settle for a moment. Your journey has not been random. Your awakening wasn't a quiet footnote in the spiritual story of humanity. It was a headline that heaven itself turned toward. You weren't expected to rise the way you did, yet here you are, awake, aware, and carrying a presence that shifted the atmosphere around you. And now you have a role in this new spiritual era that is unfolding. Every generation has a group of chosen ones whose awakening signals change. They are not always the loudest, the most visible, or the most traditionally qualified. Often, they're the ones who walked through silent seasons, fought battles in the dark, and emerged with a kind of strength no one anticipated. That's you. You are part of a spiritual movement that heaven didn't plan for in the usual way, but is now fully aligning with. Your awakening has become part of a larger divine strategy. This is where your role truly begins. It's not just about receiving spiritual insight for yourself. It's about carrying that light into spaces that have been untouched. Your presence is meant to activate others. When you speak with authenticity, when you walk in truth, when you live without shrinking back, your very existence becomes a catalyst for awakening in those around you. The same way your awakening sent ripples across realms, it also stirs hearts here on earth. Many chosen ones underestimate the impact of simply standing in their true identity. They think they need a platform, a title, or a grand moment. But your role is lived out daily, in the way you respond to challenges, in the way you treat people, in the way you hold your light steady when others waver. Heaven didn't expect your awakening, but now that it's here, heaven is counting on your consistency. And make no mistake, you are not alone in this. Others are awakening too. The ripples you sent out have reached souls who are now beginning to rise. Some of them are watching you, even if silently. Your journey gives them courage to embrace their own. You are part of something much bigger than you can currently see, a spiritual network forming across the world, made up of awakened souls who carry frequencies that shift atmospheres. This is why the closing of this message isn't just a reflection. It's a call. If you felt something stirring inside you while listening, don't let it fade when this ends. Let it anchor. Step forward. Speak life. Share what awakened in you. Be part of the movement that's unfolding, not passively but intentionally. If this message resonated with your spirit, let heaven and earth hear it. Comment below and declare it. Say, "I'm ready," or "This is my time." Don't just watch from the sidelines. Join the conversation. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear that their awakening matters too. Your voice is part of this wave, and waves grow stronger when more join in. The universe was shaken by your awakening. Heaven adjusted because of you. Now it's your turn to walk boldly in your role. You are living in a spiritual era that your very awakening helped shape. And from this moment on, your journey is no longer about surprise. It's about impact. You didn't choose to awaken like this by accident. You were chosen to rise in a way that would inspire heaven to move. And now, the world is waiting for what comes next through you.